We're back, 3/18/47. We're here back on the Ultimate Sports Network. I remember that part right. The USN boxing arm of Real Boxing Talk. And, of course, joined by our expert analyst and me, our non-expert host. We're going to talk about the heavyweights today and kind of get in perspective of a more historical look on how today's heavyweights fit in with yesteryears and how the heavyweight division is morphed and a whole bunch of good fun stuff. So, John and Charles, thank you for being on once again.
Thank you.
The concept of today is a little more freeform than what we've done before. And anyone that's seen the show is going to say, how hell can be more freeform than it's been already? But that's how we're going to look at it. So my idea is the heavyweight division is the most, here's a word for you, amorphous division that we have, because you have anywhere from, yeah, I know, don't give me that look. We have anywhere from guys that are used to be cruiserweights back in the old days, or guys that are now super heavyweights, if you look at it from the Olympic perspective, that the division does change. So we're looking at, in John's background, a Muhammad Ali poster, and Muhammad Ali, as far as I'm concerned, changed the division for the best and the worst. Because up until that point, you had big guys slugging it out. There wasn't a lot of, in my way of looking at it, there wasn't a lot of technical skill involved in being a heavyweight. You got in the ring, you punched the guy, you got punched, you punched him again, somebody got knocked out. Muhammad Ali brought in style, the ability of, say, a Sugar Ray Robinson or a more gifted lighter weight boxer as opposed to a puncher fighter. And now it's kind of changed how we go through things. So, John, give me an idea of how you see the heavyweight division now as opposed to the lighter weights.
Well, being an old man that I am, I like to read about all the old fighters the most. And the newer guys, I'm reading a book. You just mentioned Jack Johnson. I'm reading a book about Jack Johnson right now. And in those days, just as a context, they didn't move around the ring very much in his day. What they did is they kind of walked towards each other and then started to fight. But Jack Johnson was subtle, where the other guys were like tough man contests, like John L. Sullivan. He was like morphed from a James J. Corbett who did move around a little bit, but Johnson had his own style. He was more defensive orientated, but he was a counterpuncher. And that wasn't really known in those days either. So reading about his fight with James J. Jeffries out there in Reno in 1910, Jeffries had no idea what to do because he'd come in and then before it known, Johnson would be hitting him with uppercuts. And that didn't happen in those days. So reading about how it evolved, the heavyweights evolved to Muhammad Ali, like you're saying, with the movement. It had it a little because you got to remember Gene Tunney also moved around quite a bit. That was how he was able to beat Jack Dempsey. But mostly the heavyweights, what I think of, Frank, to be honest, it's not really addressing your question yet, but is the heavyweights were always the most important division in boxing because they were literally the guy. You know, they were the most famous. They made the most money. They kind of carried the sport on their back. They were the most admired, you know. And then now, I think what's going on now, in my view, is it has been so weak for so many years, and the expectations have gone. This sounds terrible, but this is the way I say it. The expectations have been so low that when you get a few guys who are at least pretty good, you go, "Wow, the heavyweights are back." Right. But what I like is it's interesting again. You know, the guys at the top, the 3 or 4 top guys. We don't think they're great fighters, I'm sure. But it's interesting. So compared to the little guys, though, the smaller guys, like, you know, we had the big fight over the weekend. The skill level, as far as I'm concerned, not close. I mean, the smaller guys, the welterweights, the middleweights, the junior lightweights, the junior welterweights, I'm sorry. I mean, these guys, there's 4 or 5 guys that are just superior fighters by far. The heavyweights are fascinating to everyone, though, because, you know, they're the big home run hitters. We know that. Just one of these, bam, that's it. People love that. They forget about everything else, which drives me nuts sometimes. But the heavyweights always, for years, carried the water. Now it's more the little guys. But it's come back a little bit, which, of course, is great for the sport. A sport, by the way, that I always have to mention, that everyone has said has been dead for years, right? See, Charles knows what I'm talking about.
I said dying. I said
7,000 people in Dallas to watch Errol Spence kick the butt of Mikey Garcia. So boxing is dead. 47,000 people. So it's frustrating as somebody who's loved boxing all his life that people aren't real about it. But back to the heavyweights, I'm glad because the heavyweights have so much history and so much good history that what's going on now is fun. So I'm enjoying it.
Well, you touched on something, and it made me think of the quote I was thinking of. John L. Sullivan, I walk in any bar, in any place, and I can lick any man in the room.
Right.
That's what the heavyweights were. You wouldn't have said, Wilfredo Benitez walks into a bar and says, that's not how that works. So that's kind of why we fell in love with the heavyweights. We weren't that guy, and there were only 3 or 4 of those guys in the world that could say that. And I think that's the important part of where the heavyweights are. So, Charles, when you look at, and you mentioned something in the previous show about that golden age of, the late 60s, early 70s of those guys, when you bring in the Quarries and the Ron Lyles and those kind of guys, will we see that again, or is that kind of, not to say that boxing is dead, but is that kind of hard to see again?
Yeah, well, see, I don't think because we don't see that many talented fighters that means boxing's dead. That was a very unique time in boxing where guys were really talented. And I think part of it too, you mentioned about Ali and how he moved, he changed things, yeah, but at the same time, even during that time, styles, I think, made fights. So you had, while you had Ali, you still have Frazier. You still have Foreman, who was this big kind of monster coming at you and just swinging these big bows at you, just coming at you, right? So, yeah, there was, the big mummy. There was nothing really super smooth about George. But you look at the other guys, so there were so many different types of fighters that had different styles, but they were very talented in what they did. So I think that particular time in boxing was very unique. As you mentioned, Ron Lyle, we can talk about Ernie Shavers, Jerry Corey, Foreman, Jimmy Young. I mean, you talk about the ultimate counterpuncher. We can go on and on and on. And guys that were really, a few guys that were really, and even Ken Norton. I mean, Ken Norton was probably one of the biggest nemesis of Ali because he could hurt him. He could literally hurt him. And Ali was pretty. We know that. He'll tell you that in a minute. And Frazier did damage too. But Ken Norton literally was, if I can't beat you, I'm gonna break your jaw. I'm gonna hurt you. So that prettiness is gonna take you about 3 months to get healed. So if not longer. so the premise of that, so I really, so I value that time period in the sport as being very unique, very special. And I feel very fortunate to grow up watching that because that gave me a barometer as to gauge other things. But moving forward to now, I'm not sure if we'll see that again because I think it was very unique. And it would take a lot of, we're talking about maybe, and my guess would be like maybe at least 10 quality fighters, very talented fighters that you knew every time you got in the ring, even if it was versus Ron Lyle, you better bring it. Right. You better bring it because these guys, they were bringing it. But now, like John said, the fact that we have a couple guys that even show that they're willing to fight and they have knockout power, but they also have a little personality. Kind of makes you think about that because Deontay Wilder, love him or hate his skills set or whatever, he's a guy that's kind of direct and tell you, I'm going to bring it to you, I'm going to do what I do. Then you got a guy like Tyson Fury that's off the chain, you don't know where he's coming from, and then you're like, oh, he's just some ogre or whatever, but he gets in there, gets in shape, and he's serious, and he can cause problems. Again, that's why I think the styles really, really are exciting, because Tyson Fury versus Wilder, you're like, Wilder's going to kill him. Has to try to figure him out. Joshua the same way. And so many other guys that I still think no matter how we look at it, even back when the day of the Jack Johnsons, as John so eloquently put it, that it's still about the styles, man. Still about styles. Different styles can make you go, wow, I didn't expect that. Or if a guy changes up or something like that. So styles, I think, are so key, but I'm not sure if we're going to see that type of renaissance of that great era, if you will, in heavyweight boxing.
And what you both just touched on made me think of something of what's going on with the current guys. And I think it makes sense because we have such disparate styles between one or another or a few that now we're looking at it and saying the heavyweights are, I'm looking at it differently. The heavyweights are a little bit more interesting to watch because they aren't just, you've got a few different guys here. That the Wilder Fury fight, I wasn't expecting to enjoy that fight. I expect two big dudes just slugging it out. And though I may not be a Tyson Fury fan per se, I'm not saying I dislike him, but I appreciate the way he fought that fight. Mm-hmm. He went in a different manner of what I expected it to be. Now, again, I haven't seen him fight that much, but he went in a different manner of what, okay, I'm going to be a jabber. I'm going to be a counterpuncher. I'm going to do some things that may not look all that smooth, but they are smooth compared to the guy that I'm fighting. And, I thought Wilder was in trouble there. Not necessarily the trouble of getting knocked out, but in trouble of being able to make a decision because, he didn't get a chance to score a lot of points. And, as we know in boxing, you can win one of two ways. You can win by a decision, which means you've got to look good, or you can win by a knockout. Well, if you're not going to be able to win by a knockout, you got to look good. Well, Tyson Fury's not going to allow you to look good. So there's an interesting way of looking at the heavyweights now, as I had spoken with Charles especially earlier, that I haven't seen it before. That it's now you've got, as he said, different styles, make better fights, and there are more disparate styles between the guys that are out there. So I can see that it's going to be a little more interesting than, okay, we got the middleweights out there, and you got this guy, and they're all the same kind of fighter. You've got enough different kind of fighters out there as heavyweights that it's going to be more interesting. So, John, I'm going to put it to you. Not in any kind of ranking or whatever, but give me the most odd heavyweight out there right now. And you can take odd however you want to.
Well, odd in a way that they're so huge. I think of two guys. I think of Fury because being 6'7", 260 pounds, and he was a slugger when he started his career. And then he morphed into a boxer, which is fascinating. See, I thought he was going to give Wilder hell because I had seen Wilder be outboxed by lesser guys. And Fury is a very clever guy. He's here. He's, I'm here now, you see me, now you don't. And even though he's so big and he lumbers a little bit, he does little things that fake out a lot of guys. He's not nearly as athletic as a Deontay Wilder, but he does little tricks that confuse. Look what he did to Klitschko. I mean, Klitschko didn't have a clue. Klitschko could have fought him for a week and would have never touched him. He could not figure out what to do. So he's a very, he's a very clever guy. If he ever fights Joshua, he's going to give him hell too because he's going to have a plan going in. He's going to know he doesn't want to be clipped, even though he does get hit sometimes because he gets a little silly. But he's a crazy guy anyway, so that makes it fascinating in a lot of ways. And the other guy that pops into my mind is Big Baby, who's fighting Joshua. I mean, Big Baby. This is a very bad comparison, so don't laugh at me too much. But when I think of him, I think of the old comedians like Jackie Gleason and Oliver Hardy from Laurel and Hardy. They were big guys, but they were really light on their feet. Right. So they'd be dancing around. You'd be going, look at that 300-pound guy moving around like he weighs about 115 pounds. And that's kind of the thing with Big Baby. That guy, Big Baby, is a good athlete. He's got skills, and he's light on his feet. And Joshua better not be taking him for granted coming up in June because he might not hit as hard. Well, obviously he doesn't hit as hard. But he's got those little intangibles, too, that will make a fight interesting. So, to me, those two guys are fascinating guys. Dillian White also fascinates me, too, because I can't figure out how good he is. I've seen him a number of his fights, and he's hanging around, and he's not really winning. And then when he fought Joshua, we hurt him bad. When he fought Parker, he knocked him down, and then he knocked out Chisora just a few months ago, which was explosive knockout. Can't tell what his level is, but the guy is kind of an interesting guy. Again, he's got another personality. So I kind of believe that what these guys have figured out that, you got Joshua is the real good guy in a sense. Everybody loves him. And then you got these oddballs that are trying to get him, And Wilder, I feel bad for him because he can fight and he's got probably the most power out of anybody, and he doesn't get the credit that he deserves. So I get his frustration. I would be just as frustrated as him based on everything I read. So the heavyweight division is kind of like it's kind of a skewed kind of a thing. You got the top guys, and then you got the other guys, and then you got a big baby who's fascinating. Like I said, what did he say? Hard work and cheeseburgers led to my shot at the heavyweight championship. I mean, I love that stuff. I do. I think that brings something else to the fight. That brings people that are on the edge more into a boxing thing. I mean, he's stealing right from George Foreman. We know that. But it works. So he just got to back it up now. But in that respect, those two guys that I've mentioned, they're the unique or strange or different guys to me.
Okay, and Charles, and to kind of piggyback on that, and something you said, boxing isn't dead. I've said a few years ago, boxing was dying. I still believed it was dying at that point because of what was going on. But is there a way that, or is it necessary for the heavyweight division to rescue, if you want to go along with what I was saying, boxing was dying? Do the heavyweights need to rescue boxing, or can they, if that's what it takes? Or is this a group of heavyweights right now that we can hang our hats on and go, this is why we love boxing?
I'll just say this. I don't think they need to rescue boxing. I really don't. I think watching Errol Spence Jr. versus Mikey Garcia, as much as people might watch boxing, does everybody know about Mikey Garcia? But you're learning a lot about Errol Spence Jr. And the way he was able to pack it says a lot about people wanting to see a true champion and a guy that backs up and shows you what he can do. When he says it, he puts it to the test. He literally dominated and outclassed Mikey Garcia. And he did it with no qualms. He did that. So I think that's why the heavyweight division doesn't need to save boxing. Not at the moment. But I think that anything that we can get some quality matches and some quality fighters, some quality fights, just adds to what's already happening. If anything, as you mentioned about piggybacking, they're piggybacking on the success of the smaller weights. And I think the one thing that really makes, as you mentioned before, that makes the heavyweight division really exciting right now. And my Oddball, I really didn't really love him at first, but the more and more I've seen is I just want to watch him, because I was like, okay, he's crazy, but nobody wants to face him. And that's Luis Ortiz, man. Luis Ortiz. That dude, he's everything. He's the guy that you're talking about. He's the real big dude. He has that killer punch. There's nothing really special in regards to when you look at his boxing skills. He's working on them, but you would never go out and say, oh, man, he's really razor sharp today. He's just not going to be that guy. But it comes back to what boxing in the heavyweight division originally stood for, correct? As we talked about that. So as we see all of these other athletes, even with Big Baby, and you also see with Deontay Wilder and Joshua kind of switching over to that way that Ali was more athletic, more able to move around and kind of change styles when needed. You got this other guy that's truly an outcast or oddball in Ortiz that comes in there and you know what he's going to do. He's telling you from the beginning, I'm coming in, sooner or later I'm going to catch you. The question is, can you handle it? So with that being said, I think that's great. And it just shows you that you can have some different styles there to make it work. But getting back to your original question, I don't think it's necessary for the heavyweight division to save it. And as John mentioned, I think a lot of people are sleeping on Deontay Wilder. And I say that. It reminds me a little bit of Andre Ward, who I know John loves. And watching I'm telling you, that Super Six, that middle, that contest, when he had no chance in hell, nobody gave him a chance. And he walked right through. And not only did he walk through, he kept coming. And it's like, okay, who you want me to fight next? And he proved to everyone, I am a real champion. In the same way with Deontay Wilder, say what you want to, he's finding ways to win. So that element and that aspect of even like an Ortiz that nobody wants to fight. That's why Wilder has my respect. Nobody wanted to fight him. Wilder said, despite all your issues with suspensions and drugs or whatever, I'm still going to fight you. Still going to fight you. But you don't see Joshua running to say, yeah, I want that guy. That's to me what makes it exciting. Because all that you can talk the talk, you can say whatever you want to, but in the end, the way that we look at this and the way that fans often watch it is, do you really want to step in with the best, or are you just trying to do the Floyd Mayweather Jr. thing that everybody's saying he created by picking and choosing the opponents at the right time? Well, if you really want respect, you'll get in line with get in and fight the best, like Mikey Garcia did, even though he lost the way that he did. Get in there and fight, because I think that's what's going to keep boxing going, as long as the promoters don't mess it up. Easier said than done.
I think you just said something that's going to get Floyd's grandmother mad at you. You just actually did something disparaging about Floyd Mayweather.
You know she loved me.
I know you've never done this one. Now, and I said this back in Mike Tyson's heyday, and I might have been drunk when I said it, but I'm 6'2.5", and at that time 230. I'm bigger than Mike Tyson, and I said I'll get in the ring with Mike Tyson. Yeah, right. But he's not going to kill me. He'll hurt me real bad, but he's not going to kill me. But the beauty of the heavyweights, and for average size people, an average size mentality is the heavyweights are these big hulking dudes that are just, you aren't that guy. You know, most people aren't that guy. And, you know, I'm Deontay Wilder, please. I'm not stepping in the ring with that guy. These guys are insanely, crazily huge and big and powerful and all that. That's why I think that we are enamored with the heavyweights, because they aren't average people. You know, we've mentioned Wilfredo Benitez or whomever, if they're, you know, Carlos Monzon, you walk to them on the subway and you go, you're a world champion, really? You know, you wouldn't think that. So what we see with these guys, and what you were talking about, Charles, is we get these guys that are out there, and it's a slugfest. I'll pick the best guy we can find and go out there and get him. And what I'm starting to see now with the Super Six, I think we should do that with, I'm kind of bapping back and forth here. I think that we should, you know, someone give us $13,000 million and we'll put together a Super Six for each division every other year. Because as you said with that was a fantastic thing. Yeah. Make people fight people that need to be on the card and do it over the course of a year and a half. When we're looking at the way we have these guys now, let's give a kind of a blanket top 5, top 6 of who's out there and what fights we like to see. Charles, let's start with you. Just give me a couple guys you say, these are the guys we need to see out there, and then we'll kind of say who they should fight.
Well, I mean, we need to see, Joshua, let's be real. He's finally coming over. I've been waiting on this. I've been hearing about him. I watched him fight Klitschko, and that was all well and good. But Klitschko was an older guy. He was kind of past his prime, in my opinion, and he gave him trouble. So Joshua now it's like, okay, and he knows, too, that the money is over here. You know, you can try to say, oh, we got all these people at Wembley Stadium, whatever. That's all well and good. He knows where the money really is. It's in Vegas. It's at Barclays Center. If you really want to be that guy, that's how it is. The other would be, I do want to see. I want to see Wilder against somebody else that really matters. And I know those are 2 top guys. I want to see that too. And last but not least, gonna lead to some other ones for you guys is, come on, man, it's Ortiz, bro. Come on. Come on. They should start at 7 and let him work his way up. Come and fight this man and show him that he's an old girl, whatever you want to call him. But no, as they said, what the younger folks say now, nobody wants that smoke. Nobody wants that Ortiz smoke.
He reminds me of when we would get a fight and you go, you're going to fight Mayorga? Really? Oh, you don't want to do that, do you? That's kind of that guy. Maybe not the same style, but it's like, I'm going to smoke cigarettes going into the ring. I'm going to smoke cigarettes in the middle of the fight. I'm just going to be this guy, you know. And that I don't know that he come in with orange hair or whatever. Like, this is the guy I want to see. This is going to be an entertaining fight. He may get blown out in 3 seconds. That's what I see with Ortiz. He may end up blowing you out in 3 seconds. Who knows? But yeah, that's kind of the guy. So, John, I'm looking at, you know, the prime matchups, if we were able to put stuff together, and then kind of as you're the oddball guy today. What's an oddball matchup that would work well as well?
Well, again, since there's an interesting batch, but again, it's about styles. You know, I was thinking about when Charles mentioned Luis Ortiz, who I really like too, because even what is he? I think he's as old as me, right? I think he's about 60 years old, and he's just beating guys left and right. Even in his last fight,
Right.
I thought he was a little sluggish, but he's just such a good fighter, you know, that I think he is avoided. And I'd like to kind of see him with Tyson Fury. You know, I think that would be an interesting fight just because, you know, Ortiz has got all that pedigree, that Cuban pedigree. He's a southpaw, which drives everybody nuts. Fury's very clever. So it might not be the most exciting fight that we see, but it would be technically very interesting because you have these two differing styles, and they both be thinking in there. And right. Fury's like, you're not going to hit me with that left hand, no way. And Ortiz is going, yes, I am. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you.
1 or 2 times, right?
That's right. I'm going to get you. So that would be cool. But you know, I'm very cliche in the sense that, or typical. I wanted to see Wilder and Joshua badly. I thought that would be a hell of a fight. And Charles mentioned this earlier. It's the promoters that muck things up because I think the fighters want to fight each other. I do. I think Wilder and Joshua want to fight. I don't think they're going, well, I want to marinate this for a while. They're saying F that. They're saying, I want to get in there and I want to see. He's talking tough. It's like, you know, we all played sports on smaller levels. And I'm sure you guys had guys that were real talkative. That used to motivate me so much. I used to say, Frank, oh, I'm going to shut this guy up. I wouldn't say anything. I just look at him and go, okay, next weekend I'll be out there, schoolyard. We'll see what you're doing. Just like Errol Spence said to Mikey Garcia. I thought it was perfect. Mikey was talking about talent, and Errol Spence said, we'll see. We'll see on Saturday. And that's that confidence thing. So that's what I think it is really in the heavyweights. It's the promoters. It's always about money, right? So they think, right. And they're right. They're all right sometimes because they think, look, we don't do it this year, we do it next year. But then if they do it too late, then people are like, you know, ho-hum. I'm tired of the whole thing. I'm bored by the whole thing. But you still watch it because you know it's the heavyweights.
Right.
But there are, back to your original question, there are Dillian White fought Joshua. That guy, that big white guy, that roly-poly guy from New York City. What's his name?
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
he doesn't look like anything. He looks like he ought to be outside eating donuts, right? And
oh, I know you. The Polish guy.
Adam, right? Adam something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, right.
What happened? I can't think of his name. Right?
Was it Kanaki or something like that? Kanaki.
Yeah. I know. Let me see.
Like that, right?
Yeah, he's a doughboy. Adam Kaunaki, right? That's him. 19, 15 knockouts. Yeah, he doesn't look like anything, but he's a tough hombre, you know, and he takes punches and just smiles, and he lumbers along, and I can't help but joke about him, so people get mad at me if they want, but you expect him to be sitting in his corner eating donuts in between rounds, but then he comes out and kicks butt. I mean, he knocked out Gerald Washington like it was nothing.
Right.
And I went, God, maybe I better cool it with the jokes here, you know. I mean, the guy can fight.
Well, that was one of those fights where I think it was on Fox.
Yes.
And I did the same because it was an undercard, and I thought, oh, what in the world are they showing me now? You know, I'm like, well, I'd go over and watch I Love Lucy or something because I'm not. And where did this guy come from? Because what he did not look like what he looked like. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And I think we get that with the heavyweights, and that's the thing. You know, the heavyweights don't have to be chiseled with six-pack abs. They can be out there and be, you know, they don't have to make weight. You know, making weight means you have to get larger. You know, not going into the sauna and having to cut your hair before the fight. Which, tell me, how much did your hair weigh? I don't recall my hair weighing that much. But anyway, I don't recall having hair anyhow. But it's one of those things where you look at it and go, these guys, and as Charles was saying, get in the ring and kick some butt. And I think that's where we're going to be. Now, we're going to try and make this program have enough clout where we're going to call out promoters and go, this is what we want. we are going to be the Ring magazine of the 2020s or whatever it is. But this is what we want. This is what it should be. And right now in the heavyweight division, I think there are a few guys. So there aren't 17 welterweights. There are a few guys where there's only so many places you can go now. So you've got Wilder, Joshua, Fury, Big Baby. You've got a few guys where now we've got to put them together because there's no place else for them to go. Mm-hmm. So does that make sense?
Yes.
We're running out of options now, so we've got to fight. Now, again, going back to where we started with the historical perspective of things, I look at it and say we can piece these guys together with, as we said, a Jack Johnson or a Dempsey or a Marciano or whatever. Is there a guy out there now? And again, once in a lifetime, we talk about each year, each time frame. But Charles, is there a guy out there now where you say, this is a guy who's going to put a stamp on this division and on history, I guess?
Wow, that's kind of hard because there's so many questions. There's nobody there's nobody really out there. And as much as I want to put Deontay Wilder right there, I still need to see him versus a Joshua or somebody that really will take him to the next level. Much credit given to Tyson Fury, but it's like Tyson Fury was trying to stay alive, trying to survive. So that's a little different. Even though that style was okay and it worked for him, and kudos to him for his style and being able to do that. But I still need to I want to see somebody fight like Wilder that takes him to that level where it's like, okay, I can fight you or I can box you and force him to really even perhaps suffer a knockdown, to get up and have to really find a way to do it. So, and the other guys too, same way with Joshua. And watching Klitschko and the other guys too, I still think there's so many questions about these boxers that I'm not ready to let somebody make claim to the throne, if you will, in the heavyweight division.
Okay, and John, I kind of on that same note, is it because of the heavyweights that we have to have our Frazier to our Ali? We have to have our Holyfield or our Tyson. Because of the heavyweights, we have to have that guy, because we've seen in the lower weights where we've anointed someone as pound for pound or the best guy out there without a challenge. But it doesn't seem like we give our just due to a Larry Holmes or to a Joe Louis or to someone because, well, the bum of the month club, who did you fight? And is it because the world can be a heavyweight fighter? I haven't quite figured that out. So is it something where we say he doesn't have that guy to fight to make him that guy?
And the bum of the month club was kind of a misnomer because a lot of those guys weren't bums, which right. if you go back and read who he was fighting the guys he was supposed to. You can't blame Joe Louis for that. He was fighting top-ranked contenders most of the time, almost all the time. So they call him the bum of the month, which is just typical of the way boxing sometimes is judged. And it's just like that in anything. I don't blame the fighter if there isn't anybody that can breach his level. You mentioned Larry Holmes. Now, I was not a big fan of Larry Holmes only because he followed Muhammad Ali and he made some disparaging comments that I didn't like. But over time, I grew to more than respect his ability and put him in the top 10 as the greatest heavyweights. I still don't think he gets the credit he deserves. Right. The man was a great fighter. Let's be real. He had the best. His jab was even better than Muhammad Ali's. I love Muhammad Ali. It's hard to say that, but his jab was better. Larry Holmes,
his jab,
he's like a great artiste. That even though he hasn't boxed in a long time, maybe 30, 40 years from now, somebody might, even though they say it sometimes, they really say, look, even now we don't give that guy the credit he deserves. And he was boring to watch because he dominated. That was the thing. When he was in his prime, there was nobody close. His fight with Kenny Norton that I watched, 1978, that was one of the best heavyweight fights I've ever seen. Caesar's Palace, Joe Louis was there. That was an incredible night. And Charles was talking about that extra level that we're looking for with these guys. Both of them dug down deep. Larry Holmes had a bad arm going into that fight. You would never know it. He didn't complain. He just found that level that the greats find. I don't know where, like Muhammad Ali did against Joe Frazier in the third fight. He was done.
Right.
But he dug down so far and found it. And that's what we haven't seen, going back to what Charles said. And I agree. Joshua got knocked down by Klitschko. He got up. He was really hurt. Took him a couple of rounds to recover, and then he knocked him out. So that was good. And true, Klitschko was past his prime and everything, but he did it. He managed it. Deontay Wilder was in big trouble against Luis Ortiz. Big trouble. I thought he was going down. I thought he was going to go down like a big tree. He kept getting hit with those left hands. I thought it was just, ugh. But he came back and knocked out Luis Ortiz, who was shocked, I'm sure, because no one had ever knocked him out. I think he got knocked down, you know. So these guys aren't there, going back to that, but they're exciting, as I said when we started this, and fun. But comparing different times is tough because Charles hit it on the head. That time when we were all, I think Frank is the young one here in the group. We're kind of young.
Yeah. He's 12.
Right? He's 12. Okay. So he doesn't remember those great times. He looks at right now. But the 60s, 70s, you know, Riddick Bowe was really a good fighter. He popped into my mind. He doesn't get a lot of credit anymore. But that time in the 60s and 70s, early the 70s, the depth of the heavyweights. Even a guy like Mac Foster, who couldn't beat the top guys, he would have been right there 10 years later because he was beating everybody else. So it was just so loaded. And then the other thing, last thing, when you're in it, when you're watching it, you kind of take it for granted. You don't really realize that this is really a special time in the sport's history. You know, you're watching it, you're loving it. You're not thinking, well, 10 years from now, it's not going to be like this. 20 years, it's not going to be like this. 30 years, it's just now. It's the now. So we got what we got. It's tough to compare times in boxing, but at least we got some interesting possible matchups here in the future. If it comes to fruition, I think it will, though. I'm an optimist.
Well, Charles, I'm going to look at something that you said in previous shows and interviews that, and I know that you love where I'm going to go with this. Have we recovered from, if you want to call it recovered from, I know you weren't a fan of the Klitschko era, because let's face it, was kind of boring. You know,
it was.
Yeah. Have we recovered from that, or are we in the midst of recovery from that?
I think we're in the midst of recovering from that. And the only reason why I wasn't a big fan of the Klitschko era, both brothers, is I just wanted them to be challenged. And I know I'm not saying that they were not challenged totally, but there was a lot going through it. I said the same thing a little bit too about Lennox Lewis, who you know I'm a big fan of. Right. Anyway, so I just want to see people challenged. I really do. And I think with that Klitschko era, I just felt for a while, it's kind of like the Larry Holmes thing. As much as Larry Holmes tried, oftentimes he just wasn't able to fight guys that were worthy of facing him. And I know that's not his fault, but also too, to kind of throw him up there with Ali, I think is preposterous. Even though he said what he said about Ali, I'm like, really? Until you show me something different, you will never be on that level, because I said that time where Ali was so special and he fought everybody. He fought everybody. So as much as you might want to say that, then I know you can't help who you face because that's who comes along in your era, but that still shouldn't give you you should not receive credit to be considered one of the top greats simply because the talent that you face wasn't there. So I do think, I will get back to the point, I think that we are coming out of the Klitschko area. I think actually we have almost like both feet out, simply because we have guys that are coming up now, and they're guys that we want to see fight. Really, when you think about the Klitschkos, when I thought about that, there's nobody that I really said, man, if he fought him, I think he'd be in trouble. It was like, probably be the same thing. Mm-hmm. And the way that, I'll say this too, the way that Emmanuel Stewart was able to really change the styles, because he had been in that level and knew what it was like. So he had been experienced with a lot of different fighters, kind of changed it, and then propelled the top Klitschko to another level, because he had one of the greatest boxing minds in his corner, and that allowed him to evolve as a fighter.
Well, there's something to be said, and again, we're fans of sport because it's entertainment. Now we're doing this professionally as a chronicle of what we see, which is one thing, but we watch because it's entertaining. So winning boring is still winning, but it's still boring. And no offense to the Klitschko's, and we can spin that to different sports and different franchises and different people. All that's part of what the problem with Floyd Mayweather was with some people. Is like, well, he doesn't do anything. Well, if you understand what you're watching, he did. But when I saw the Klitschko's, I saw a guy 6'7" going, I'm going to keep you at bay, keep you at bay, keep you at bay, boom, boom, I'm going to win a round. And again, that's if that's how you want to win and you're able to win, if at the end of the day you want to win the fight, that's great. But to me, it made the heavyweights go, and as we said, it's also part of who they were fighting as well. If you can't beat him, you can't beat him. So you got to come up with a way of doing things. So I see now that as we were talking about the recovery of that from that era of we got these two big guys out there that are just not hittable to, again, a Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, guys that can be hit and have been hit and have gone up off the canvas and have done other things. It's more exciting. Does that make them better boxers? I don't know, and I'm really not sure that I care. But it makes me want to say, hey, that fight's on this weekend. And I think that's what we want to do. We want to say, that fight's on this weekend. Let's take a look at it. So as we're looking at things, I know we spoke off air about looking back at the Errol Spence and Mikey Garcia fight. I don't know that bears recap. I think other than to say somebody talked the talk, somebody walked the walk. And I don't think that Mikey Garcia didn't walk the walk. I just think that Errol Spence was, oh my goodness, that much better. John, what do you think about that? We'll recap it a little bit.
Yeah, I've read a lot of things.
Mikey had a chance.
I did, and I read a lot of things on social media afterwards where people were saying that he wasn't trying and he was only in there for a paycheck. And I that's a gigantic assumption. He was trying. If you watch the fight, and I'm assuming you guys were, he just couldn't do anything. Right. You know, Errol Spence was he was stronger. That was the most important thing. And he couldn't get under his punches. He couldn't hit him. And Errol just, the technique that I wondered about a little bit going in, it was brilliant. I mean, he didn't even get touched much at all. He showed a lot of facets to his game. And this is what I mean, well, he didn't knock him out. It's like, you know what? He won all 12 rounds against a fighter that a lot of people consider in the top 3 is the best fighter in the world. He probably had only lost 2 or 3 rounds of a fight in his whole life, and Errol Spence wins all 12 rounds. And it's like, you can't please everybody if people are going to complain about that, you know. And I don't even think Errol was worried about the knockout. I think he was trying to show people, yeah, you know, I got power and I could do this and I could do that, but I got another level to my game, not just a level, but another facet to my game that I'm going to show you, because this guy's a boxer puncher, and I'm going to show you that, yeah, I can box too, and I can punch hard too when I want to. So yeah, I thought it would be more competitive. I thought Mikey would win maybe 3 or 4 rounds tops. I didn't think he would. I never thought he would win. I just thought he might compete for a while and then fade, and then Errol might stop him late or win the decision. But Errol showed that he belongs easily in the top 10 as a pound for pound, probably around 5, right around there, 4 or 5, and that he's a tremendous fighter. That's all there is to it.
And Charles, someone who's been on the Errol Spence bandwagon since it's been in existence, did he show you anything new, or he's like going, yeah, that's what I expected?
No, actually, he did show me something new. The way he was able to move and box and be accurate. I mean, I've seen it in the past. I saw him before when he went overseas, and he had to do a little bit there too. But he really showed me that, you know what, I know where my spots are, and he really seemed like a technician in this fight. Because after a while, like we got to about the 3rd or 4th round on, then it's like, okay, this is where you are lacking. And I know I can hit you, and I can push in forward, step back out just enough. You're not going to hit me. I'm going to put my hands up. I got you right where I want you. And that doesn't happen often. And again, I know I want to say it out there, but I think in the past when you spar with a guy like Floyd, man, and Floyd in his ear, it's like, look, watch right here. Here's where it's going to go, and point out some things along with his trainer goes a long way. But he showed me something brand new from that standpoint. And I also think too, and no disrespect to Mikey, because Mikey came in and he took the fight and he did his best. But I also want to say that I think that Mikey Garcia and his team kind of, to me, it seemed as if they got really caught up in trying to be big,
right,
physically, because he seemed very slow to me. And
Yeah.
even when he weighed in, you looked at his body, I was like, man, you don't look like you got a 68, like you got about an 8.5, 9 pack. He just did not seem like, and the whole thing with Conti, I told somebody else that too. That whole thing is like, you're looking for tricks. At the end of the day, it's not about tricks. You can try these different techniques or whatever, but you have to bring it, and you have to take what you used and bring that to the forefront of boxing in the match. And I don't think he did that. He seemed a lot slower to me. I don't know if that would have made a difference, and maybe he was a little nervous because he was smaller. But I really think at the end, because you can see the body shots, even though he was trying not to show that he was hurt, body shots that Spence was putting on him was like, poof, he was like, oh my God. And he can never really come back fast enough.
Right.
So I think those things there played a major part. But I think Spence Jr. shows you that I'm ready. Keith Thurman, I'm ready. Whoever, I'm ready. And the only thing I'll say, get off this very quickly, is come on, man. Manny Pacquiao, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Come on.
Seriously.
Come on.
Right.
Come on. Give us something better than that. I'm not mad at you, but we can do better than that, Errol.
It looked well, that's where the money is, though, exactly.
It's the money.
I know that, and I get that, and I understand that, but it's what it is. It's like he's older, and if Jeff Horn can give him at least elbow him in the eye and make him hurt off of elbows, sticking elbows, and what the hell is Errol Spence gonna do?
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah.
It looked to me like, and this is the analogy I'm going to use, and it may be wrong because I haven't done it in a while. It looked like they were playing a video game. One had the turbo button, one didn't. I mean, that's what, like, I'm able to take this to another level, and you can't. And that's what it seemed like to me. It's like Errol's like, I've got this, you don't have that, and no one else has it either, or not many other people do. So, you know, it's not to say that, you know, as we said, Mikey can go back down a weight and still be a relevant fighter, a more than relevant fighter. But at that size and with that skill set, you know, and he's only got one loss on his record. That's not a bad thing. Like you said, John, it's not a bad thing. It's just that you find your level of, like, that wasn't it for that weight class. He'd go back down, you know, to 135 or 140 and be okay.
Lomachenko. Let's get this. I've been calling for that. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't think he can get down to 135 now, guys. I mean, he could, but I don't know if he wants to. 140, but the guys that I know on the Ringside Boxing Show, they think he ought to hang around in welterweight and fight Danny Garcia and fight Keith Thurman. And I'm doing like you, Charles. I'm going, no. He was not that impressive at 147. I don't think he was ever the quickest guy anyway, but he looked very sluggish. You know, and how's he going to do when Keith is moving around and sticking the jab in his face and everything? I think he's going to have problems with him. He's a small guy, you know. He's not built to weigh 147. Errol can move up to middleweight someday if he wants. He's big bone. You can see that. Plus, his focus was another thing that I really liked. He was laser. He was looking at Garcia before each round, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And I was really impressed by that, too. I mean, you're talking about a total pro here. And Mikey was confused because things he had done for years that always weren't working. And if you can't because I'm thinking he builds himself up to 147, right? But I'm thinking to myself, right, if I'm going to try to beat a guy like Errol Spence, one, I'm going to have to try to get his respect. And two, I'm going to have to try to be a little faster than he is. If I can't get his respect and he's faster than me, well, I'm in big doo-doo here, and if I survive for 12 rounds, okay, that's fine. But I think that's what happened. I think he realized that there was no plan here against Errol.
Well, I'm going to go back, and I could be wrong about this, but it reminds me of when the tail end of Michael Carvajal's career, where he was no longer able to fight at that weight. And I could be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking of. And even though he had the skills, he's now up 2 weight classes, and the guys 2 weight classes aren't worried about his skills. Like, now I can lean on him a little bit. You have to be a bigger fighter to fight at that weight, but you have to translate what you did in the lower weight. That's what Pacquiao always seems to have done. I can go up in weight and still maintain my skill set and still maintain my advantage. Well, I think that's where Mikey's at. If he can't make 135, I don't know that he translates to 140 or 147. I don't think that his skill set and what he's able to do, I don't want to call him light in the pants, but whatever you want to call it, and he's not a speed fighter in the first place. So if you're going to fight up 2 weights, you better be faster. And if you're not faster, well, I'm not sure what you're going to do.
Right. Yeah, that was my point, Frank. Exactly.
That was supposed to have been a question, and it wasn't. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I mean, but like you said, though, I think 147, though, with those skills don't translate up there, especially the power. You can't hurt somebody or rock them and get them to respect you. It's a tough going, and that's why I think he would be really doing himself a disservice there, because let's be real, Bud Crawford, Porter, even Porter, I thought there, Thurman, I can go on and on and on. I mean, Danny Garcia, yeah, okay, we don't know if Danny's gonna throw a punch again. Be Earl be first. So I get that, but the top guys, why not go down to 140? I think he can make 140 and still be okay. And he could really do well there. But 147 is a different animal. And with more people coming in, that type of thing, I mean, maybe it won't happen, but if you're going to be at 147, you might get on that phone and have them call Manny Pacquiao before Spence gets to him.
Well, as you said, Lomachenko.
Oh, man. Come on.
Well, okay, well, I hadn't planned on going there, and I really don't want to this time, but I'm going to because I can't control myself. As we're talking pound for pound, and I know that we've not exhausted the heavyweights, but this is what we end up doing. I don't think we had any problem saying Floyd Mayweather Jr. was the pound for pound best fighter out there. Even if you wanted to go back during that time with, I don't know, Chris John or whoever you want to say, fit in that realm. But who is that guy right now? Because we've had a lot of different things shake out in the last 6 months. Do you say Lomachenko? Do you say it's one of the welterweights? Is it Canelo? I mean, where do we go? Charles, I mean, not to rank him or anything like that, but who jumps in your head going, if they were all fighting on even terms, this guy would be the best guy?
Man, that's tough. Because, I'm going to catch hell no matter which way I go. I'm going to catch hell.
Just off the top of your head.
No, I'm just saying I'm going to catch hell anyway, because some people go loud enough. And I'm just saying, I said it before, it's just my opinion. I need to see Lomachenko fight some damn body. I'm sorry. I just do. I just don't. I mean, the way he got rocked a little bit in a couple other earlier fights, he seems susceptible to me that somebody could maybe get to him. Doesn't mean he's not great. But when you say greatest right now, pound for pound, I'm going to throw out there, I'm going to go Errol Spence, man. I'm going to go Errol Spence. And I say that because of what he showed me and the way he's able to become a technician. He had that durability. The one thing I loved about Floyd, I was one of his biggest fans in the ring, for those that listen, in the ring again. But it's the fact that he was able to get into the ring with anyone and he made them look normal. He took away the superpowers. So everything that you did, you came in with your cape on and S on your chest, or whatever you had, your special power, he took it away. And he made you play on his level. He made you play on his level, and he made you look bad. And if you did get close, a la Canelo Alvarez is a hell of a fighter, even though he was young. He was like, nah, man, look, there are certain things you don't understand. I am a genius at what I do defensively. And I'm going to take this crowd to another level and show you have more lessons to learn. So when I see Errol Spence Jr., the way he kind of dismantled Mikey Garcia, even though it was a lot different in weight classes, I think that right now his potential and his latest effort kind of shows me, yeah, this guy here, as John said about, he really didn't make a mistake. His mistakes were very minimal. So with all that encompassed in the way we're looking at it and his potential to even go up to a bigger weight if he wants to, yeah, right now, yeah, that's the guy that I would say right now, for me, pound for pound, is probably the guy I would pick.
Okay, John?
Well, I'm still on the Lomachenko bandwagon. I think it's like Lomachenko and Bud Crawford. Those are the two guys that I think are interchangeable as far as the best. Yeah, I hear you, Charles, about who's he fought, and Linares knocked him down, but he actually stopped Linares the next round with a body shot.
Right.
He didn't look very good in his last fight. You know, you start to wonder about guys when they have 400 amateur fights and things start to catch up with them. You don't know, but Terrence Crawford, what I really like about him is he's so mean. I mean, he's competitive as all get out. He's the guy that says, nope, you're not going to beat me. So I think I love that about him. And he adapts. So I could put one or two or either of them right there. Canelo, obviously, Errol Spence is right there in the top 5, obviously, after this performance. I can't make him number 1 yet. But what he showed me on Saturday night, he's working his way up there. He's going to be number 1 the way he's going. I mean, we can't forget about the big guy Usyk, who's got a lot of talents. You know, who was fighting in the heavyweight.
Right.
Yeah, he's like a big Lomachenko in a lot of ways. Lomachenko's dad trained him, so he's got a lot of skills. But so right now it's really close. You know, if it was a political battle and they were doing a poll, they'd say, you know, it's 50.1 versus 50. You know, between Lomachenko, Terrence Crawford. See, Canelo, I don't know if I put him – I know the ring has him as 3rd, and I don't know if I put him that high. I mean, because he beats an old Golovkin, and he got a gift in the first fight as far as I'm concerned. So I think I might put Errol above him. Actually, I would. Not Mike. I would put Errol Spence above him because I think Errol has more skills. But don't send me any bad comments here, Canelo fans. Canelo is in the – you know, he's there. He's like 5th or 6th, something like that. It's not an insult. He beats Danny Jacobs here in June, and that could move him up too. But maybe that's good that we don't have one guy that when you get asked that question, you go, Tim. Yeah, you know, I mean, it was Lomachenko for a while because he was making everybody quit. He was knocking guys out, and what he did to the straw man, you know, and he just said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. Nicholas Walters, right? I mean, he says, I don't want any more of this, right? I mean, that was really impressive to me.
And those fights, and to piggyback that, those were fights where they weren't necessarily hurt. When he hit you with the liver shot and you give up, okay, I'll give you that. But when you're in the corner going, I don't see any way out of this, there's no point in continuing. And we know, and we've talked about boxers don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get through training camp, you don't get through sparring sessions if you have a quote unquote quitter's mentality.
Right.
So when you get in the ring with someone and he makes you, and that's the thing that, you know, you hear people saying, oh, he quit, he's not tough. Boxers don't quit. Mm-hmm. That's not what they do. So when you make someone quit and you're not actually physically in danger, you know you were getting your ass kicked. And that's what there's no point going back out there. Yeah, I know I said that. There's no point going back out there because there's nothing I can do with this guy. You know, so that's why, yeah, I had him in that range for a while.
Right.
But to go back to our original thought, if you go back 30, 40, 50, 80 years, do heavyweights get short shrift in this idea of being the best boxer, the best fighter, pound for pound out there? Because they're heavyweights and they supposedly don't have the skills that other guys have. I mean, can you think of when you go back and say pound for pound in the last 50 years, would you say Ali? Okay. Would you say Tyson? Okay. Would you say Lennox Lewis during that era?
You don't want me to say anything about Tyson. I'm gonna tell you the truth. Can I throw this out to you? And you know how I feel about this. I thought Mike Tyson, for what he did and what he represented, was amazing. His story coming out the depths of hell or whatever, and he did what he had to do when he was in that ring. But I think the one thing that I've always said, that he ended up turning into what was, to me, was deemed a one-trick pony because everybody was scared of him. And I always ask this question, and not often people can give me a correct answer. After the Buster Douglas fight, and I know a lot of stuff happened after that, but after Buster Douglas kind of showed what I say he provided the blueprint to break down Tyson. Name me one significant fight that he won after that. I'll be quiet.
Did he win a fight after that?
Yeah.
but that's my point, though, that what Buster Douglas did, what he did, then you can see where Holyfield rose up and says, he's not as tough as I thought. I can get physical with him, because that was the one thing that we knew about Tyson. Everybody feared how strong he was, how physical he was. But as you mentioned, Frank, he was a little guy. He brought the heat, no doubt, and he could do whatever. But some of these bigger guys were like, especially Holyfield, to this day, I don't care what they say, he, along with some other folks down in Georgia, they should register their foreheads as lethal weapons, because they use their foreheads to this day. No wonder Tyson bit, because he's banging my head with that lethal weapon.
Well, all right, okay. First of all, let's look at it this way, and think about it this way. Holyfield was a cruiserweight. Okay, so it's not about being the bigger guy. I mean, granted, he was still the bigger guy.
Right.
And if you want me to start singing Bad Bad Leroy Brown and get to that point where, okay, that you got to figure out how to beat the bully. And once you figure out how to beat the bully, everybody can beat the bully. So I agree with that. But at that point, before you figure out how to beat the bully, I don't know if we put ourselves in that historical era before they figure out how to beat the bully. Everyone was afraid of the bully. You saw the Bone Crusher Smiths and these guys I don't want to get, he just destroyed people. So if we were ranking him at that point, that's what I'm saying. At that point, you would have said Tyson, pound for pound, in the top 5. And I don't know whether that's fair or not, I don't know if that's right or not, or whatever, but that's what at that point. Now, again, as you go back after the Buster Douglas fight, no, not even, and as you said, did he win a fight after that fight? I think he might have, but I can't recall that he did. But
Bruce Seldon, that doesn't count. The Bruce Seldon.
Like you said, I'm trying to remember. Okay, Bruce Seldon. Well, okay, all right. I'll give you that one. What's for your side?
Look, Bruce Seldon is one of those names you're gonna remember in the top 30 of all heavyweights, right?
Now, we're going arcane references. I just saw this Singing in the Rain, and Debbie Reynolds' character was Kathy Sullivan. Anyway, but anyhow, I was
close to that time, Frank.
Trying to keep it boxed in. But okay, but you're talking. Would you have said one of the Klitschko's were pound for pound, or Lennox Lewis, or Razor Ruddick, or
It's getting nasty now. It's getting ugly.
He's getting tired, I think. Charles.
Yeah, Razor Ruddick.
You see where I'm going here. If you were heavyweight champion of the world at some point, did that mean you were pound for pound? Did that get you that idea of being pound for pound? Whereas, again, I'm not saying that they should have been or shouldn't have been. What I'm saying is, do we give the heavyweights a little less respect for being great fighters, or just because they're heavyweights and they're more bankable?
My turn?
Yes, please.
See, the guy behind me is the guy that I look at as the greatest heavyweight that I've ever seen, the greatest fighter in my generation. I think he would have beat Joe Louis. So to me, he called himself the greatest, and he was the greatest. He'd have beat, if you watch film, and I know you guys have, and anybody who watches this should if they haven't, you watch him in the 1960s. You watch him against Cleveland Williams. I mean, no one could have beat him that night. He was so on that night. He was so crisp. Even when he was yelling at Ernie Terrell, "What's my name? What's my name?" He was pounding him like it was nothing. So that guy back there, he's the #1 pound for pound, and he's heavyweight. So yeah, I think if you're that good, you're going to get it. And I think Tyson was the best fighter for a while. Too much for him to carry, as we know. But would Tyson have beat? Here we go. Would Tyson have beat that guy? No, I don't think so. I think if they had fought in their prime, I think Muhammad Ali was just too much. Would have been too much for him. He'd have done a Buster Douglas on him before Buster Douglas, obviously. He'd have figured it out. So that's kind of what I look at as my barometer on the pound for pound as far as heavyweights. Some of those other guys you were mentioning, Frank, what are you going to mention? Tony Tubbs next? I mean, come on now. Come on, Frank. You do better than that.
No, I was going to go Tony Tucker, Tony Tubbs, the same, yeah. But Greg Page. But it's the concept of, we put the heavyweights in a box that we don't put the rest of the categories in. We're excited and enamored for the fact that they're out there and they're going to beat the crap out of each other because they're usually big sluggers, but we don't think of them as the best boxers. And I don't know that that's right or wrong. It's just something I'm thinking of. And yes, I was going to say Mike Weaver after that, but anyway, but you kind of go to that point of, do we give them credit for being boxers, or do you give them credit for just being entertainers? Charles, are we looking at something differently when we look at heavyweights as opposed to we're looking at lightweights, middleweights, junior welterweights, strawweights? Do we look at them differently, and should we look at them differently?
Perhaps we do look at them differently, but I don't think we should. And for me, it's not the factor that I don't really consider. I mean, you can look at some of the top heavyweights from even in history that I consider them like the best pound for pound. I think you have to be exceptional. You really do. As you mentioned, John mentioned about Muhammad Ali. He was exceptional. I mean, he broke the mold. And the same way, too, when the smaller weights. I just don't throw somebody up there just because, he was a 5-time champion. Show me something. For instance, again, maybe that's my default, or my issue is the fact that one-trick pony. And after a while, I love to see a technician where a guy that gets in there and is able to make changes in the fight because he has to in order to win. And you just have to make those changes, and that makes you more a versatile fighter and also more one of the best, because you ran into a situation that really wasn't working your way, and you had to come back with a different strategy from your corner or whatever, change what you were doing, and get the job done. That, to me, speaks to pound for pound. Ali was clear with that. I mean, I cried when Frazier beat him the first time. I love that, man. He was my hero. And when he lost, I was like, and I got teased and everything, all that stuff. But then he found a way to come back, reinvent himself, and he took care of business. That's where you talk about pound for pound. And it's not just that these heavyweights aren't talented or good, but in order for them to be considered pound for pound, you got to be special. It's just not something you throw around because you were WBA champion and WBO, WBC champion. You had to, in my opinion, when I say pound for pound, I'm looking for someone or some guys that are truly talented and truly special.
Okay, I think we've opened it up and closed it at the same time, because I think we're looking at things that we can continue the discussion in various different ways, and I'll think of some more fringe heavyweights we can talk about later. But yeah, I'm sure I will. But as we're looking at it, though, and see, this is why I didn't want to go strictly the way we've been doing things with the heavyweights, because to me, it adds a little bit of a different dimension, because I think they're perceived differently. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a great thing, because as Charles said, you still have to be able to box. You still have to be able to fight. You still have to do the job. But I think because most of them are not normal-sized human beings, and you don't see them walking down the street in the pub, you don't see that, you look at them differently. And maybe we give them, I don't know, a little bit of a different take. Again, like you said, Ali, I have no problem with him being up there. I have no problem with you saying that was the greatest fighter in the world during that era or in any era. I have no problem with that. But also thinking that he didn't necessarily fight like a normal heavyweight. So that's another way of looking at it. Now, people tried to emulate that again as we move along. And as you said, Larry Holmes had a better jab, a stiffer jab, a punishing jab, but it still didn't have the style of Ali. And Ali was stylistic at that point. And don't even get me to bet you by golly or anything like that. But anyhow, we're looking at different ways of looking at things, which is, I think, what we're trying to accomplish here. So I like where we're going. So I think we'll cut it off at this point. I've got people telling me I have to go drink beer with them in Las Vegas. So sorry about that. But,
what a life! What a life! Life of a star, right, Charles? Life of a star.
Exactly.
Well, we're trying to make it so we all get here and do the show in one place. Hopefully we can do that relatively soon and go check something out. But I think where we're going from here is more people need to come follow us and see what's going on. Gentlemen, John, tell people where they can find you.
Well, I'm on Max Boxing. I'm going to brag a little, Frank, even though it isn't meant to be bragging. I'm the lead writer and the editor on Max Boxing, and we're doing all kinds of cool things there, changing things around, putting videos on there, doing all kinds of things. I write articles. I got a bunch of people want to write for Max Boxing now, which totally stunned me. Wow. So we're excited.
Can I write?
Yes, yes, no problem.
I know how to type.
Frank can too. Frank can talk about the heavyweights everybody has forgotten. No. But yeah, Max Boxing doing good. I'm gonna put this out there too, Frank. So please go with me here. I'm almost done with the second book that is basically called Blood on My Notebook: Dispatches from the World of Boxing, where it's a lot of the ringside stuff that I did years ago. I don't do it as much anymore, and it's a true story. I was sitting at ringside, two guys were over me, one got hit, blood went right on my notebook. So I went, what on my notebook? I like it. That was about 10 years ago, so it tells you how long it's been taking to get this one going. So, but yeah, Max Boxing, we're excited. There's a lot of competition out there, but we're trying our hardest. So people, I just beg you to please check us out. And then, of course, Intimate Warfare is done very well on Amazon, and Dennis and I are thrilled.
And Mr.
That's enough.
Farmer, if you can fit in the 17 different things that you're doing, give a little plug for yourself.
Yeah, there's a few things, but we're going to stick with the major ones, whatever that is. TheRealityOfSports.com, the website there. We also have a Facebook page where we try to put up just different articles to pique your interest, because with newspapers kind of going by the wayside, even though it's other people's information, I think it's solid that you still have stuff that makes you think and make you worthy of saying, well, I may not agree with that, but it's going to make me become more of a critical thinker. And like I said, I tell people all the time, I don't expect anybody to agree with me. I don't want you to agree with me. I just want you to think and quit buying into the media bias and people telling you just because they make a bunch of money and wear a nice suit, they know what the hell they're talking about. Not always the case. Anyway, besides that, the other thing too is we have a radio show, a couple of friends of mine called the Goon Squad, Sports Radio Show on Blog Talk Radio. We do it live on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, but tonight we're doing it live at 9 p.m. because we want to talk about the brackets and March Madness and all. Again, that's Goon Squad Sports Radio Show on Blog Talk Radio. Okay,
and since the person I used to talk with about what the brackets doesn't want to talk to me about the brackets anymore, I guess I'm not doing that anymore. So I won't have a bracket show at all this year. But
whatever. You are, that's by choice. You don't know what the hell you want to do. Are you talking boxing? You talking horse racing? You talking tiddlywinks? You talking minor league baseball? Pick a girl, man.
Okay, well, and to your point,
there, Frank. So come on now.
To your point, yes, as the Ultimate Sports Network goes, I don't have a subject. I jump all over the place because that's the way I watch sports. So, and everyone says you should have I can't do that. This is the way I see things, and I just can't confine myself to one thing. So if you want, and speaking of which, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook. We just started stuff on Instagram, which I still don't know how the hell that works, but that's working. YouTube, all over the place. Just type in Ultimate Sports Network or USN or One USN. You can find us. It's so much fun to be out there with people and people connecting with us. The LinkedIn people, I will toot my own horn. We just connected with Eric Sleepy Floyd on LinkedIn. If anyone wants to see what we have to talk about Sleepy Floyd, so there's so many different things that we connect with, and so many different people. And that's how we've all found each other. So I think it's a great thing that we're out there in social media. I still don't understand how social media works, but I know I'm a part of it. So that's how it works. So guys, thanks again. I really think that if we keep connecting with other people, anyone that watches this, feel free to connect with us and subscribe to our various stations and channels, and we will get back to you and see what happens from there. Because as we progress with this, I like the idea of us be able to do a show at a specific time, then have callers come in and say, hey, here's why I think you're an idiot. Why does this guy keep talking? Shouldn't he shut up? That kind of thing. So, gentlemen, I know I say that all the time in my head, but my mouth keeps moving. So, I appreciate you being here once again. We're going to keep on doing this. I think that this was a different way of the way we normally do things. No graphics is talking about the heavyweights, which I thought was pretty cool. But we'll go back to the other formats on the other shows. We've got fights coming up. We may do more fight-specific stuff as we come along, going into fight season. And again, we've got 3 old ballers here talking about basketball. We can do that as well. We get into horse racing. So, yeah, I know you just you stay out there and don't come in the paint, man.
That's right.
Fire.
Why? Why should you come to paint? You can't check me. Anyway.
You guys stay in the paint. I'll take the 3-pointers.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go out there too. It's okay.
They didn't have a 3-point line in my day, though. I
have a coach that's glad we didn't have a 3-point line when I was playing. So, Anyway, so I think we're in good shape here, guys. I appreciate you being here, and like I said, I got to drink beer. So,
okay.
Tell Dave I said, hey, man.
All right. We'll talk to you later, gentlemen.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
Take care, John.
You too, Charles. Bye-bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.